balcony. With the name of Allah, the All-Merciful, the Especially Merciful. And with sending favor on our leader Muhammad and his family and his companions, all of them, the prayer of Moses. I deeply apologize for last live where I was going on for some time. And shout out to Bruce who let us know, like, hey, we can't even hear you. So I am still in the midst of doing a sound check at the moment, but hopefully, prayers willing, it is there's sound. Okay, we're in here. We're in here. So it's really a situation where I let my son use the mic, and he's 3, right? He's a toddler. And that thing, I told him, be careful. Silly me. Of course, the little top came off first, the little fuzzy part. And then next thing you know, the button came off on the mic. And now it's completely MIA. And I feel like life in general for moms is a lot like that, where motherhood literally just slowly takes everything out of you if you're not very intentional about supports. And so this whole conversation today is around this idea of really thrivers being the exception, not the rule for mothers. For when I talked about domestic violence thrivers, I was speaking about pretty much all non-whites in Western society, particularly America. For those that are thriving, we are often taught that this is how it should be, and that our above average is the rest of society's average, but that's actually backwards. And so we're going to get into more of that today, and um, how the exceptions actually prove the rule. They actually prove that the society was only set up for an elite small group of people that does not look like me, does not talk like me, does not act like me, or have those same, a lot of the same values, some of the same. And then how to really mitigate the constant attacks without being defensive as a mother, as a non-white, as a woman, all these things. But I want to start with a little story time because I know I've been going on and on about this whole turnaround teacher thing, and yes, I am still an advocate of it. But if I were to teach something long term, it would probably be social studies, just because that was my degree, was political science. And so I was covering for a social studies teacher last week. And the very last period that I had, there were 2 situations. One was this girl, this Latina girl, and this white guy that came in the class, and they were all like touchy feely, and clearly a couple. The other was a black girl and a white guy right outside the class. And again, they were like talking all along, like how romantic, standing in the hall with a bunch of other teenagers and by the lockers talking. Like these kids, I'm like, y'all need to graduate first. But anyways, I digress. So the black girl comes in, both of them really pretty, and I'm just like, these guys were mid. They weren't like all that. But then again, this is high school, so I'm not even interested. Like, I'm just like, do you? Okay, do you, boo? But the thing about it that I wanted to point out, and I did to the girls at the end of class, is like, or to really those that were left over, was like, why are there no women in this classroom? It was right on the brink of a conversation where one of the girl's boyfriend was saying he's going to ASU and he's going to be an engineer. And the girl was kind of like, yeah, like she's just kind of playing ditzy and like, I don't have any plans. He's like, yeah, you couldn't do that, or so, just something to that effect. And I was like, why are there no women in this classroom? And like, I first pointed out like, these guys that were sitting on this high sky, like tall beam, and they asked them who were those guys, and they said workers, like industry, iron workers, they built the skyscrapers. I'm like, yeah, but they're a direct reference to a very popular culture influence, the Skywalkers. And I was like, does anybody know about the Skywalkers? And they're like, no. Like, raise your hand if you've heard about Luke Skywalker. Raise your hand if you've heard about Star Wars. Like, even I could raise my hand, even though I'm not a Star Wars fan. Everybody knows Luke Skywalker. Skywalker was named after the Native American Skywalkers who are responsible for some of the tallest buildings in our world, in our country. And one of those happens to be the World Trade Center. Something else that may ring a bell is like the Twin Towers, I believe. The Native American Skywalkers were responsible for constructing those, and 33 or more, if not many more, had died doing so. And so for these seniors, for these 11th graders to be in this classroom the whole year and have this black and white picture of like Skywalkers, supposedly Skywalkers. They were really white guys, which was strange to me. But I guess, Native Americans weren't the only ones who were Skywalkers. I don't know, but they're the most famous ones. So in this history class, they have this picture. They don't know who these guys are. They find out, okay, that's that. But on top of that, you look around, you see all the presidents, Barack Obama's the one black one, like all guys, all white. You're seeing like different quotes and things, basketball players, football players. Clearly the teacher was a guy, probably a white guy, definitely a Republican. Like he had a Bible on his desk. He had like military stuff. So anyways, I was just checking all this stuff. Big old flag, American flag, that's a big sign on his door that he had made himself. And then he had himself like kind of like looking into space on a flag that he had done for himself. But anyways, I asked the person, I'm like, why? I asked the whole, class that had been left over, was why are there no women? And they were just like, huh. And I was like, the only one is this YN, which was really, it was just like one of those mannequins that you can put a wig on. And somebody had put like one of those, like, those masks that like a lot of like YNs say they have, like where they just cover everything but their eyes. And it was the strangest thing. Like, how openly misogynistic can you get? And you wonder why these girls think that they're like not smart or they can't do things. Like, you don't even have them represented. You don't even have them in the classroom. Like, you're literally erasing them. And so, the girls just were like, huh. And then the one that has said, like, she was kind of like talking with her white boyfriend and stuff. Like, she was like, she's kind of playing dumb, or at least was like giving like ignorance is bliss, which I totally get. She was giving fawning, like they're both giving fawning, which I totally get also. But like, she's like, oh, that mannequin was me. I did that for a project where I had like she put lice in this mannequin's wig, and then each piece of lice had like a history fact on it. And I was like, that's so creative. That is way out there. I was like, I like it because yeah, creativity is a very feminine trait. We are nurturers, we're creators, all of those things. Like, who would think? And like, we bring these things to spaces. And she happened to be the only one, that was pretty much only female representation in that whole history class. And so I bring this up to say that any woman who succeeds in this society, any person of color, right? Often they are seen as just like their efforts are downplayed. They're seen as just like average by those who are in the dominant group, and those who are within their group, like say for instance, if they're Latino or if they're Black or if they're other women, whatever it may be, they will look at them as above average. And like, so the standards are like all over the place. And the whole point is, no matter whether you look at it as them as average or above average, or even below average, just to be living in this country as somebody outside the dominant social group, you are a thriver. Like, that's what I would argue, because it was not set up for us. It was not set up by us. And people want to downplay this. And I think even people within those groups can often dismiss themselves as like lazy bums or like lazy. Like, I heard that said, I've heard those things. And it's horrendous, because the reality is that's just not, it's like using an individual lens to solve a structural issue. And yes, that is a part of it. Like, yes, psychologically, mentally, there are aspects that we can control, we can manage, but vast majority of things are out of our hands. Not to mention the spiritual dimension, that for everyone, Nick, that the color of Allah is overruling everything, and that even if we were to be this close, like have something that we were striving for this close to our lips, that if Allah didn't will it, He could take it. And similarly, if something were as far away as like 2 mountain spans, and or like, there was like so high, it was like 2 mountain spans, that Allah would allow us to reach it if that was in the plan. But I'm looking at things not from that level, not from a deeper level, but just on the surface even. We are domestic violence thrivers in the US as non-whites, as women, as people on the outside the dominant social groups, because we are constantly being erased, we are constantly being downplayed. And I think we need to be aware of that. There's a reason for affirmative action. That's what I'm talking about right here. Affirmative action is essentially acknowledging the history that comes before all these so-called commonalities. And I just wonder, like, where are the post-racial people now? Now that we have this idiot in office for the second time, and many others like him who are in leadership positions, not just politically, but around the country in different business roles, different government roles, all these things, education. When are we going to actually accept that there is a history? Like, it's not just you and your individual will and your individual work ethic versus everybody else, but that this pattern, this systemic, this social, this structural pattern has been designed to literally do the opposite of it's been designed to make sure that we cannot be average. We can't even be average, let alone above average. And still, there are many of us that are above average, that are thriving, or that are even seen as average, but are actually kind of above the bar that was set as far as these obstacles go, right? Like, it's only 50, like a little over 50 years ago that women were allowed to vote. Women were allowed to own properties. Women were allowed to have office, things like that. Okay. And also people of color. So I really want to make this make sense. Like, how this math is not mathing of saying like that certain people are mid, right? People that are outside the dominant social group in terms of their output, in terms of their, the way that we show up, the way that we are continuing to survive and even thrive. The math is not mathing as far as like the level of scrutiny that we get compared to those who are in many leadership positions that happen to be white, that happen to be men. Hi, Cookie Fan. Ashwin Kumar, I am from Georgia. I was born in Georgia, raised in Arizona. I did submit for a DNA test, which I'm really excited for. But as far as I know, I'm Black and Native American, and I'm really excited to dig deeper into those African roots and find out my exact tribe. So some tips, some things that have gotten me through, because I mean, the more you learn, the more upsetting it can be, unless there is this combination of not just a structural lens, like, but an individual lens. Like, we don't just need to be focused individually and look at the psychology of things, but I do think it can also be unhealthy if we're hyper focused on the big picture as well and looking at socially, structurally too much, looking at politics too much. You got to be able to back away from that stuff and say, hold on a second, what is my locus of control? How can I rein it in? Even with all the pressures, like, let alone if you're a parent, like, good God, it is a lot. So what I would say is there are a few things you could do. You don't have to go out and even get a therapist, but even having online resources, go-tos, books can be key to really grounding in a sea of obstacles that have been set up for your failure. So number one, I would say boundaries, and I think somebody really good about that is Terry Cole. I've learned a lot. She's known as a boundary boss. And just with the turnaround teacher mindset that I've been pushing, I think a lot of these people are not meant to be like lifelong people for you. You take what you need, you move on, you learn from someone else. And so that is one for me. It's Terry Cole. Jamie Scrimger, she is known as the stepmom coach. She's also been helpful for those who've been feeling single while married. No shame or shade, but I think that it's helpful because these are the groups that I think can really give us those perspective shifts that we need to be able to advocate for ourselves in, again, a society that does not necessarily want us to win, that does not want us to even survive, honestly, let alone win. So if you are here today, I just want to pause and say something that people discourage a lot is for you to give yourself a pat on the back. But I'm telling you, I'm so proud of you for continuing. I'm not saying this in a self-righteous way, like I'm aware of my flaws and things like that, but I'm also aware of the level of just pure hell that people who are not white, people who are not men, people who are just outside the social dominant social groups are subjected to, and the mental gymnastics that are played in order to keep us doubting ourselves, to keep us feeling like, well, I'm not measuring up. Y'all be going above and beyond. I'm not even gonna lie. People from overseas, like it's crazy to me the level of just pure excellence that comes out only from Allah, because there's no other way that you could do anything with the level of just pure evil that tries to hinder our success. So then the other thing I would say is EFT tapping. So that's something that it involves like even something as simple as a headache that you might have, going and doing these tapping sessions, sometimes as short as 5 minutes on YouTube. You could look it up, EFT tapping for headaches. And you're basically just saying statements as you tap certain points on your body, and that helps to ease the tension and to enforce whatever it is that you want your body to process. So the other thing is, the other things are local groups, like I will say mom apps or movement groups like Muslims in Noor have been tremendous in just getting energy flowing and getting out of our heads and being able to connect with others who may or maybe not be going through the same things or similar things as you. And Muz Social, I will say, for the Muslims is great because it's a lot of people on there that are, just looking for friends. Like I'd say women friends, women looking for women friends, and men looking for men friends. I'm not a proponent of mixed gender friendships per se, and I have a whole reason for that. I mean, obviously, we all know that's the standard as Muslims, but I think that it also tracks on a logical level too, and I can talk more about that if you're interested. I do not believe the earth is flatter than a pancake, no. Surf, I saw that comment, so I don't know why you're asking, I don't. So the other thing are warm lines. The other things are warm lines. Nasiha helpline is a great one. I would highly recommend. 10 out of 10. They are really good at in the moment support when you feel like you're kind of lost, you don't know what to do next, that sort of thing. For those who are literally experiencing DV or domestic violence, there are warm lines for that. But I would also recommend Muslima DV stuff specifically because it's like there are less people trying to use it, I guess, and they might have more supports. They often have legal support and just so many things. So I would definitely tap into that. Love Bless Noor Family Services in Georgia specifically. I know they've been really helpful in our journey, and I don't know where we would be without them today. Alhamdulillah. The other thing are maternal helplines or warm lines, peer support lines. But maternal, they're the one that I think is most popular is up to 2 years. They will support you until you have a 2-year-old, and a lot of it's for new mamas, but it's a helpful resource to have in your toolkit. The Khalil Center is a Muslim counseling center. Your school, work, legal, financial, and counseling groups can be a great resource. If you have an employer assistance program, tap into that, see what they can offer. Masjids, right? If the masjid has a more harmonious feminine and masculine presence, even if they don't, a lot of times you can get support. Definitely zakat. You do not have to be Muslim to get zakat, so you can get basically charity as a resource that can be helpful in certain situations where you may be in may not be able to find it otherwise. The other thing is the Healed Sister, formerly known as the Divorce Coach, Samaya Atuji. Really helped me through my first divorce, and subsequently has been a great, for a time, I think that she has been a great resource for many sisters. And so I definitely recommend looking into her work. Prayer to Allah, obviously, and salawat, sending favor on the Prophet, God bless him, grant him peace. They say that if you don't have a guide, that salawat will be your guide, or sending prayer on the Prophet. And what better guide than the prophets? And The Journey Back to Your Heart is one book that I also found quite transformational, something to look into. The 40 Rules of Love is a book that I also recommend. Unconditional Parenting, although I would read it with a grain of salt because I think a lot of things in society, like a lot of things in life, we can often try to apply to our lives without understanding our own position. Like if you are in a black body or brown body, if you are in a woman's body, things like that, you can't necessarily apply all advice. You have to take it with a grain of salt. And so I think that's part of the thing too, is like we have to be able to create our own rules in a sense of understanding what is for us and what is not for us. Some of it's experiential, but you don't have to go through the school of hard knocks all by yourself. Look at those like yourself who are succeeding, who what their failures were, what their successes were, and learn from that. Find people who look like you. It's just like if you're trying to like do a weight loss journey or whatever. Find somebody who's your height and who's your size, your weight, or your build similar. And even then, you're still not going to apply necessarily what they do to a T, but at least you have a more appropriate standard versus trying to look at, like, for instance, if I were trying to lose weight, looking at some white guy, like trying to copy his stuff. Like obviously we have different builds, we have different backgrounds. It's not going to be the same. Like we're not going to eat the same, we're not going to have the same plans. And obviously if I don't want to like bulk up, or if I don't want to like lose weight, or I don't want to gain weight, whatever it is, like I'm not going to follow that person. So it's the same thing in anything in life, whether it's financial, whether it's spiritual. Look at the people's results, look at their like backgrounds, not just their results but their backgrounds. And it sounds like common sense, but again, a lot of us are beating ourselves up because we're not meeting these standards that were never meant for us, just like with weightlifting, just like with body recomposition and things like that, is where that was not for you in the first place. So why are you calling yourself a loser and like judging other people who may not be where you think they should be because they're not using the right playbook? Basically, they're using someone else's playbook that was not designed for them. So I would say the last thing is In the Flow, or Flow app. For women specifically, cycle syncing can be a game changer. I think that we definitely operate in phases. And so having a better understanding of that and knowing the luteal phase, for instance, and what you need, what your body needs versus in that phase versus ovulation, can really, really help have more grace with yourself as well as grace with others. We're in this together, right? We don't operate in a vacuum. None of us is an island. And I think that with these things, some suggestions like these, that we can have more grace, not just with ourselves, but with others. And that's the whole point. That to me is the definition of thriving. And it starts with self-forgiveness that comes from a bigger picture perspective, not being so focused on what, you know, the outside is telling you you need to do or be, but starting with yourself, with your own background and knowing knowing who you are, and then you can move forward from there. American Muslim first time. What do you mean? Estirari. That's all I have for you today. Until next time, please take care of yourselves. Please take care of your family. I will see you tomorrow. Creator willing, we're going on here 100 days straight. We are more than halfway there. Thank you for joining in, and welcome if you're new. If you're not new, welcome back. Join the family, subscribe, make sure you're hitting those notifications so you know when we come live, and we can have those discussions and we can learn together. Salam, peace.